The note fluttered against my windshield like a trapped butterfly, held down by a single wiper blade. Something about its placement felt deliberate, calculated. I snatched it before the autumn breeze could carry it away, my fingers trembling as I unfolded the crisp white paper. Stay away from Rose. This is your only warning. I'm Alexa, and until this moment, my biggest concern had been planning Emma's 8th birthday party. Now I stood in the grocery store parking lot, scanning faces in the crowd, wondering which of them had left this threat on my car. Rose, my mother-in-law. The woman who'd spent the last 15 years trying to prove I wasn't good enough for her precious son. But threats? This was new territory, even for her. My phone buzzed. Ben's face lit up the screen. Hey, did you get the cake? His voice carried that familiar warmth that usually melted my worries. Not today. No. I crumpled the note in my fist. Something came up. I need you to come home early. What's wrong? You sound. Just come home, Ben. Please. I drove home with my rearview mirror becoming my closest companion, checking it every few seconds. The note burned in my pocket like a hot coal. Our neighbor Tom was mowing his lawn as I pulled into the driveway. He waved, probably noticing how I nearly clipped the garbage bin. Emma bounded down the stairs when I walked in, her pigtails bouncing. Mommy, where's my cake? Shorty, sweetie. We'll get it tomorrow. I pressed a kiss to her forehead, breathing in her strawberry shampoo. Why don't you go finish your homework? But you promised. Emma. Homework. Now. She trudged upstairs, shoulders slumped. I hated disappointing her, but my mind was racing with possibilities. Who would threaten me over Rose? What had she done to inspire such protection? Ben arrived 30 minutes later, his tie loosened and forehead creased with worry. I thrust the note at him before he could speak. He read it twice, his face darkening. This has to be a joke. Does it look like I'm laughing? Come on, Alexa. My mother's difficult, but she wouldn't. I didn't say she wrote it, but someone's trying to keep me away from her. Why? He ran his fingers through his hair, a nervous habit I'd noticed on our first date. Maybe you're reading too much into this. It could be kids playing pranks. Kids? Playing pranks with your mother's name. My laugh came out harsh. When was the last time you really looked at her, Ben? She's been acting strange for months. The whispered phone calls, the way she changes the subject whenever I ask about her past. She's lonely since Dad died. That's all. No. There's something else. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to a photo I'd taken last week at Rose's house. Look at this. The image showed Rose's kitchen table, covered in scattered papers. In the corner, barely visible, was a notebook filled with what looked like coded messages. Ben squinted at the screen. So she takes notes. She's always been organized. Those aren't shopping lists, Ben. Something's wrong, and now someone's threatening me to keep me from finding out what it is. Emma's voice drifted down from upstairs, singing some pop song she'd learned at school. The sound twisted my stomach into knots. Whatever was happening with Rose, it wasn't just about me anymore. I had a daughter to protect. I'm going to find out what she's hiding, I said, meeting Ben's troubled gaze. With or without your help. He handed the note back to me, his fingers lingering. Just be careful. Sometimes the truth hurts more than lies. I watched him climb the stairs to check on Emma, and something cold settled in my chest. The note might have been the first warning, but I knew it wouldn't be the last. Rose had secrets, and someone was willing to threaten violence to keep them buried. Well, they picked the wrong person to threaten. Rose's front door creaked open before I could knock. She stood there in her silk robe, perfectly coiffed hair, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Alexa, what a surprise. I wasn't expecting visitors today. The threatening note burned in my pocket as I followed her inside. Her house smelled of lavender and secrets, the kind that fester in corners and behind closed doors. I brought Emma's art project, I said, holding up the watercolor painting my daughter had made. She wanted you to have it. Rose's hands trembled slightly as she took the painting. How thoughtful. She placed it face down on the coffee table, next to a stack of papers she quickly covered with a magazine. Is everything okay, Rose? You seem. Tea. She cut me off, already heading toward the kitchen. I just bought this lovely chamomile blend. I followed her, noting how she locked her desk drawer before moving away from it. Actually, I wanted to talk about something else. I pulled out the note. Someone left this on my car yesterday. Rose's back stiffened as she filled the kettle. I can't imagine why you're showing me this. Because it's about you. Someone wants me to stay away from you. Why would anyone write that? The kettle clattered against the stovetop. Perhaps they're concerned about your tendency to meddle in other people's affairs. Meddle? I'm family, Rose. Are you? She turned, her face sharp with sudden anger. You married my son, but that doesn't give you the right to question my life. Emma's voice piped up from the doorway, making us both jump. Grandma, why are you yelling at Mommy? I hadn't heard her come in. She must have followed me from the car. Rose's face went pale as she noticed the notebook in Emma's hands, the one I'd seen her writing in last week. What's this funny writing? Emma asked, flipping through pages of symbols and numbers. Is it a secret code? Rose lunged forward with surprising speed, snatching the notebook. That's private. Her voice cracked like a whip, making Emma stumble backward. Mom. I pulled Emma close, feeling her small body trembling. What is wrong with you? Get out. Rose clutched the notebook to her chest. Both of you, get out now. Not until you explain. I said get out. She grabbed a glass from the counter and hurled it against the wall. It shattered, sending shards skittering across the floor like ice across a frozen lake. I scooped Emma up and backed toward the door. Rose stood there, chest heaving, surrounded by broken glass and spilled secrets. This isn't over, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Whatever you're hiding, I'll find out. You'll regret it if you try. Her words followed us out into the sunlight. Emma was quiet on the drive home, her usual chatter replaced by sniffles. I caught glimpses of her in the rearview mirror, watching her trace patterns on the window with her finger. Grandma's sick, isn't she? She finally asked. What makes you say that? She writes weird things and gets angry like Mrs. Peterson did before she went to the hospital. Are you going to make her better? My throat tightened. Mrs. Peterson, Emma's former teacher, had suffered a mental breakdown last year. Sometimes grown-ups have problems that aren't easy to fix, sweetie. Tom was in his driveway when we got home, washing his car. He took one look at our faces and dropped his sponge. Bad day. Emma, go inside and start your homework. I'll be there in a minute. Once she was gone, I told Tom everything. The note, Rose's reaction, the notebook full of strange symbols. Jesus, he whispered. Want me to do some digging? I still have contacts at the police department from my reporting days. I hesitated, remembering Rose's threat. But the image of her throwing that glass, Emma's frightened face, steeled my resolve. Yes, whatever she's hiding, it's eating her alive. And now she's dragging us down with her. Be careful, Tom warned. Sometimes people keep secrets because the truth is worse than the lie. I watched Emma through the window, bent over her homework at the kitchen table. The truth can't be worse than this limbo we're living in. Whatever it costs, I'm going to find out what Rose is hiding. And God help anyone who tried to stop me. Tom's office smelled like old coffee and determination. 3 days of digging through public records had left dark circles under his eyes. But his voice crackled with excitement as he spread documents across his desk. Look at this, he said, pointing to a yellowed newspaper clipping. 25 years ago, Rose worked at Meridian Bank. The same bank that was investigated for a massive fraud scheme. I leaned closer, scanning the article. She was just a teller, who quit 2 days before the FBI raid. Tom pulled out another document. And a month later, she bought that house she lives in now. Cash purchase. The implications hit me like a physical blow. You think she was involved? The investigation went cold. No arrests. He hesitated. But there's more. Remember that notebook Emma found? Those symbols. He showed me a photograph. They're similar to the coding system the bank used for their illegal transactions. My phone buzzed, Ben calling again. 3rd time today. I silenced it. Does Ben know any of this? He was 13 when it happened. Rose told him they inherited money from a distant relative. Tom's expression darkened. There's no record of any inheritance. A knock at the door made us both jump. It was Sarah, Tom's secretary. Mrs. Henderson is here to see you, Tom. Says it's urgent. Rose stepped into the office before either of us could react. Her usual perfect appearance was disheveled, her hands twisting her designer scarf. I should have known you two would conspire against me. Her voice was eerily calm. Digging up ancient history won't change anything. It might change how the FBI views the statute of limitations on fraud. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Rose's laugh was brittle. You think this is about money? About some old banking scandal. She pulled something from her purse, another note, identical to the one I'd received. They're watching me too, Alexa. They always have been. Tom moved closer to me. Who's watching you, Rose? The same people who'll destroy everything if you don't stop investigating. She placed the note on Tom's desk. Ask yourself why they're threatening you to stay away from me. Maybe they're trying to protect you. Protect me? You threw a glass at your own granddaughter. Because she found evidence I've spent 25 years hiding. Rose's composure cracked. You think you're so clever, following this trail of breadcrumbs. But you have no idea what's at the end of it. My phone buzzed again. Ben's face on the screen felt like an accusation. Then tell us, Tom said softly. Let us help. Help. Rose's eyes filled with tears. Like you helped investigate the disappearance of Julia Carter? Tom went rigid beside me. Julia Carter, the story that ended his journalism career 10 years ago. A woman who vanished after threatening to expose corporate corruption. How do you know about that? Tom's voice was barely a whisper. Because I know what happened to her. Rose's hands stopped shaking. And if you keep pushing, the same thing will happen to Alexa. The room seemed to tilt. Are you threatening me? I'm trying to save your life. Rose moved to the door. Ask your friend Tom what really happened to Julia. Ask him why he stopped looking for answers. She paused, her hand on the doorknob. And Alexa? Tell Ben I'm sorry. For everything that's about to happen. She left us in stunned silence. Tom had gone pale, his hands gripping the edge of his desk. Tom. My voice sounded strange in my ears. What did she mean about Julia Carter? We need to stop. He started gathering the documents, his movements frantic. This is bigger than bank fraud. We're not equipped for this. Tell me what happened to Julia. He met my eyes, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw real fear there. I can't. But Rose is right, you need to let this go. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from Ben, Emma's missing. Come home now. The world stopped spinning. In that moment, I understood what Rose meant about protecting me. Because now I had a choice. Walk away and keep my family safe, or dig deeper and risk everything. I looked at Tom, who was still destroying evidence of our investigation. Call your contacts at the police department. We're not stopping until we know everything. Because someone had taken my daughter, and now there was no going back. The police found Emma at the park 3 hours later, unharmed but confused. She remembered a woman with red hair buying her ice cream, telling her mommy had sent her. My daughter's trust had always been her most beautiful quality. Now it terrified me. While Ben put Emma to bed, I broke into Rose's house. The spare key was still under the garden gnome. Some habits never change. The darkness inside felt alive, watching me as I moved through rooms that held 15 years of family dinners and forced smiles. Rose's study door was locked. A credit card and 30 seconds of fumbling fixed that. Inside, the air was thick with cigarette smoke. She'd started again. The desk drawer yielded nothing but bank statements and utility bills, but the false bottom beneath them told a different story. The letter was handwritten, dated 25 years ago. The paper had yellowed, but the words remained sharp as knives. Rose. Julia knows everything. She's threatening to go public. Handle it or we all go down. Remember what happened to David when he got cold feet? My hands shook as I read it again. Julia Carter. The same woman Tom had investigated. The same woman who vanished. Find what you're looking for? I spun around. Rose stood in the doorway, still wearing her clothes from earlier. She didn't seem surprised to find me here. Who's Em? I held up the letter. And what happened to David? Put it back and leave. Her voice was flat. Emma's safe. Take the warning and walk away. They used my daughter to send a message. The words tasted like copper in my mouth. Did you arrange that too? If I wanted to hurt Emma, I wouldn't have made sure she was found. Rose moved to her desk, pulled out a cigarette. The ice cream woman was a warning. Next time won't be so gentle. There won't be a next time. There's always a next time. She lit the cigarette with steady hands. Ask Ben about his father's accident. Ask him why a healthy man's brakes suddenly failed on a clear day. The room tilted sideways. What are you saying? I'm saying his father asked too many questions. Smoke curled around her words. Like father, like son. Like wife. My phone buzzed. Tom calling. I let it ring. David was Ben's father, wasn't he? The pieces clicked together like a toxic puzzle. He found out about the bank fraud and threatened to expose it. The fraud was just the surface. Rose's laugh held no humor. We thought we were so clever, using the bank to move money for people who didn't want to be found. Then we realized who those people were. She took another drag. By then it was too late. And Julia Carter discovered the truth. Julia Carter died because she couldn't let it go. Rose crushed her cigarette. Like you won't let it go. I'm not afraid of you. You should be afraid of them. She pulled out another letter newer. This came today. They know you broke into the bank records. They know about Tom's investigation. Her hands finally trembled. They know Emma's teacher is allergic to peanuts. Ice filled my veins. That's not possible. They know everything. Rose held out the letter. Read it. Then decide if your revenge is worth your daughter's life. My phone buzzed again. Tom's message flashed. Found something. Come quick. Rose watched me, her eyes hollow. Make your choice, Alexa. But remember, I made mine 25 years ago, and I've lived with it ever since. I took the letter, my fingers brushing hers. For a moment, I saw not the manipulative mother-in-law, but a woman trapped in a web she'd helped weave. I'm going to find out everything, I said. Not for revenge anymore. For Emma. For Ben's father. For Julia. Then you've sealed all our fates. Rose turned away. Don't come back here again. Next time, I won't be able to protect you. I left her in the darkness with her secrets and smoke, the 2 letters burning in my pocket like live ammunition. Tom was waiting with answers, but now I understood. Every answer would only lead to more dangerous questions. And somewhere, someone was watching, deciding whether my daughter would pay the price for my curiosity. The smoke alarm's shriek pierced the night. I was already running before Ben fully woke, my feet knowing the path to Rose's house better than my mind. Red and orange flames danced behind her kitchen windows, casting demonic shadows across the lawn. Tom reached the front door first, shoulder ramming it open. Rose. His voice disappeared into the roar of flames. The heat hit like a wall, but I pushed through, following Tom's silhouette. Rose's normally immaculate home had become a maze of scattered papers and overturned furniture. The fire seemed to be coming from her study. We found her there, frantically feeding documents into a metal trash can, flames licking at the ceiling. Her eyes were wild, unfocused. They're coming, she kept muttering. Have to destroy everything. Tom grabbed her arm. Rose, the house is on fire. Let me go. She clutched a handful of papers to her chest. I have to finish. I snatched the papers from her grip, more coded messages. But these had names. David's name. Julia's name. Others I didn't recognize. It's evidence, I realized. You're destroying evidence. The ceiling creaked ominously. Tom wrapped his arms around Rose's waist, physically lifting her. Later. We need to go now. Outside, neighbors gathered on the lawn. Sirens wailed in the distance. Rose struggled against Tom's hold until she saw Ben running toward us, still in his pajamas. Mom. His voice cracked with fear. Rose went limp, the fight draining from her. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, David. Ben froze. What did you say? But Rose's eyes rolled back, and she collapsed. The paramedics arrived just as Tom lowered her to the grass. Hours later, in the hospital waiting room, I studied the partially burned papers I'd grabbed. Most were illegible, but one section remained clear. David Henderson, terminated. Julia Carter, terminated. Next phase, secure inheritance through BH. Ben Henderson. She's stabilized. Ben's voice made me jump. I shoved the papers into my pocket. Doctor says it was a combination of smoke inhalation and extreme stress. He slumped into the chair beside me. She called me David. She thought I was Dad. Ben. I reached for his hand, but he pulled away. She's been acting strange for weeks. The paranoia, the coded messages. His voice hardened. What are you telling me? Before I could answer, Tom appeared, his face grim. We need to talk. All of us. He glanced around the empty waiting room. The fire wasn't an accident. Someone cut Rose's gas line. The papers in my pocket felt like they were burning through my clothes. Did you tell the police? Police can't help. Tom ran a hand through his ash-streaked hair. I recognized one of the names in those papers Rose was burning. Michael Crane. He was the lead investigator in Julia's disappearance, the one who buried the case. Ben stood abruptly. What are you talking about? What does a missing persons case have to do with my mother? I pulled out the papers, handed them to him. Watched his face change as he read the words terminated next to his father's name. No. He crumpled the paper. This is insane. My father died in a car accident. Ben. No. He backed away from both of us. My mother needs help, not conspiracy theories. She's sick, confused. She's terrified. I cut in. And now someone's trying to kill her. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Henderson is asking for her son. Ben looked between Tom and me, his world visibly cracking around the edges. I can't. I need time to think. He walked away, leaving Tom and me with the weight of unspoken truths. What do we do now? I asked. Tom picked up the crumpled paper. We follow the money. The inheritance Rose mentioned, it's the key. But Alexa, he gripped my arm. These people killed Julia for asking questions. They killed Ben's father for threatening exposure. They used my daughter to send a message. My voice came out stronger than I felt. They made this personal. The hospital lights flickered, casting strange shadows across Tom's face. There's no going back now. Behind us in Rose's room, Ben's shocked voice carried through the door. Mom, what do you mean they're watching Emma? The hospital room felt too small for all our secrets. Rose sat propped against white pillows, her usual perfect posture crumpled like the burned papers in my pocket. Ben stood by the window, his reflection fractured in the glass. I placed Emma's latest drawing on the bedside table, a family portrait where everyone smiled. If only life were that simple. Tell us everything, I said. No more codes. No more threats. Rose's fingers traced the edge of Emma's drawing. They'll kill her, you know. Like they killed David. Like Julia. Her voice cracked. I thought I could protect Ben by staying quiet, but now. Who are they? Ben turned from the window. Who killed my father? Meridian Bank was just a front. Rose's words came faster now, like she couldn't hold them back anymore. We moved money for people who needed to disappear. Politicians. Criminals. Sometimes they needed people to disappear too. My phone buzzed. A text from Tom, Emma's school. Now, the world tilted sideways. I showed Ben the message, watched his face drain of color. What's happening? Rose grabbed my arm. Is it Emma? You brought this on us. The words tasted like ash. Your secrets, your lies. I tried to warn you. Rose's monitor began beeping faster. The inheritance, it's blood money. They've been watching, waiting for Ben to claim it. That's why they killed David. He wanted to refuse it, expose everything. Ben's phone rang. Emma's teacher. His hands shook as he answered. She's gone, he whispered. Someone picked her up early. Used my name for authorization. The floor disappeared beneath my feet. Rose started pulling out her IVs, monitors screaming in protest. The old warehouse, she gasped. By the river. Michael Crane, he'll be there. He handles their problems. The detective who buried Julia's case? My voice sounded distant, underwater. He's not a detective. He's their cleaner. Rose grabbed a pen, scribbled something on Emma's drawing. These numbers, they're account codes. Proof of everything. Take them to the FBI, but only after. After what? After you get Emma back. Her eyes met mine, clear for the first time in weeks. They won't hurt her until they have the codes. It's leverage. Ben was already moving, keys in hand. I'm calling the police. They own the police. Rose's voice cracked like a whip. Why do you think Julia's case disappeared? Why David's accident was never investigated? My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A photo of Emma appeared, sleeping or unconscious. I couldn't tell. The message below, codes for the girl. 1 hour. I'm coming with you, Ben said. No. The word surprised me with its firmness. They'll kill her if they see you. You're the heir. They need you alive to access the money legally. She's my daughter. And my reason for living. I took Rose's codes, memorized them. If I don't make it back. Don't. Ben grabbed my arms. Don't say it. If I don't make it back, burn it all down. Every last one of them. Rose called out as I reached the door. Alexa? I'm sorry. For everything. Save it. I didn't look back. Your apology means nothing if Emma dies. The hospital corridors blurred past. Tom waited in his car outside, engine running. As I slid in, he handed me something heavy. A gun. Julia's backup piece, he said. Never turned it in after she disappeared. The warehouse loomed ahead, a monster of rust and shadows against the setting sun. My phone buzzed one final time. Another photo of Emma, now awake, terrified. Remember, Tom said as I checked the gun. These people don't leave witnesses. Good. I tucked the weapon away. Because I'm not planning to either. The warehouse door creaked open like a mouth ready to swallow me whole. Somewhere inside, my daughter waited. Somewhere inside, the truth about everything would finally come to light. And someone wasn't walking out alive. The warehouse air tasted like rust and regret. My footsteps echoed off metal walls as Julia's gun pressed against my lower back. Ahead, Emma's stuffed rabbit lay discarded on the concrete floor, the one she never went anywhere without. Mommy. Emma's voice came from above. I looked up to find her on a metal catwalk, Michael Crane's hand on her shoulder. Even from below, I recognized him from the newspaper photos about Julia's case. He hadn't aged well. The codes, he called down. Now, let her come down first. His laugh scraped against the walls. That's not how this works. You have something they want. I have something you want. Then we're at an impasse. No. A new voice behind me. We're not. I turned to find Tom stepping from the shadows, gun aimed at my head. The betrayal felt like ice in my veins. You. Why do you think I kept pushing you to investigate? His smile was all wrong. Someone had to make sure Rose's paranoia didn't fade. Keep her unstable. Keep her from telling the truth. Julia trusted you. Julia was naive. Like you. He gestured with the gun. The codes. Now. Emma whimpered above us. I reached for the paper in my pocket, hands trembling. You killed her, didn't you? Julia. She wouldn't let it go. Tom's voice hardened. Just like David wouldn't let it go. Just like you won't. A gunshot cracked through the air. Tom stumbled forward, revealing Ben behind him, Rose's revolver smoking in his hands. Get away from my family. Chaos erupted. I dove for Julia's gun as Crane dragged Emma toward the catwalk stairs. Tom, wounded but alive, fired wildly. Ben took cover behind a pillar. The codes. Crane shouted, using Emma as a shield. Or she dies like her grandfather. I pulled out Rose's paper, held it up. Here. Take them. Throw them over. No. I stepped into the open, gun steady. You come down. Alone. Mom, Emma's voice shook. I'm scared. It's okay, baby. Look at me. Just keep looking at me. Crane started down the stairs, pushing Emma ahead of him. Tom groaned on the floor, blood pooling beneath him. Ben kept his gun trained on both men. Slowly, I said as they reached the bottom. Emma, come to me. She took a step forward, but Crane yanked her back. Codes first. I held out the paper. As he reached for it, Emma stomped hard on his foot and twisted away. I fired twice, catching him in the shoulder. He fell cursing. Ben rushed forward, scooping Emma into his arms. I kept my gun on Crane while grabbing the real codes from my other pocket, the ones Rose had actually given me. You know what these prove? I showed them to Crane. Every transaction. Every murder. Every corrupt cop and politician you bought. You can't expose this. Blood seeped through his jacket. They'll kill everyone you love. No. I crouched beside him. Because dead men can't give orders. His eyes widened as I pressed Julia's gun to his temple. Wait. This is for David. For Julia. For every life you destroyed. Tom's weak laugh echoed behind me. You're not a killer, Alexa. People change. I cocked the hammer. Ask Rose. Mom. Emma's voice cut through my rage. Please come home. My hand trembled on the trigger. In Crane's eyes, I saw fear. The same fear he'd put in so many others. The same fear that had ruled our lives for weeks. I brought the gun down hard across his face, knocking him unconscious. Call the FBI, I told Ben. The real FBI. These codes will give them everything they need. As sirens wailed in the distance, I held Emma close, breathing in her strawberry shampoo. Ben wrapped his arms around us both. It's over, he whispered. But we all knew better. Some secrets don't die easily. Some betrayals leave scars that never fade. And somewhere out there, people were already planning their revenge. The federal agents swarmed Rose's hospital room like angry wasps, their questions sharp and relentless. She answered each one with a calm I'd never seen before, as if confession had finally freed her from her demons. I watched through the window, Emma's hand warm in mine. Ben stood beside his mother, his face set in stone as she detailed David's murder, Julia's disappearance, the years of money laundering and covered-up crimes. Mrs. Henderson. Agent Carter approached us, her badge catching the fluorescent light. We need to discuss witness protection. No. The word came out harder than intended. We're not running. The organization's reach is crumbling. I handed her my phone, showing the news headlines already breaking across the country. Every name, every transaction, every crime. It's all public now. They can't hide anymore. Emma tugged my sleeve. Can we go home? Home. Such a simple word for such a complicated place. Soon, baby. Ich knelt beside her. First, we need to say goodbye to Grandma Rose. Ben met us at the door, his eyes red-rimmed. She wants to talk to you. Alone. Rose looked smaller somehow, diminished by truth and justice. The monitors beeped steadily as I took the chair beside her bed. The inheritance, she said before I could speak. I've signed it all over to Emma. We don't want your blood money. It's clean now. The FBI seized everything else. Her hand trembled as she reached for mine. I let her take it. I've spent 25 years trying to protect my family by keeping secrets. You protected yours by exposing them. You got David killed. I know. Tears slid down her cheeks. But you saved Ben. Saved Emma. Did what I never had the courage to do. Through the window, I watched Ben lift Emma onto his shoulders, making her giggle despite everything. Agent Carter spoke into her phone, orchestrating the fall of an empire built on secrets and bodies. Tom survived surgery, I said. He'll testify against everyone. Good. Rose's grip tightened. Make them pay. All of them. They already are. I stood, reclaiming my hand. Goodbye, Rose. Will you ever forgive me? I paused at the door. Ask me again when Emma's older. When she understands what happened to her grandfather. Outside, Ben wrapped an arm around my waist. Ready? Almost. I approached Agent Carter. There's a grave you need to find. Near the old Meridian Bank building. Julia Carter deserves to come home. She nodded, emotion cracking her professional facade. Thank you. The drive home felt longer than usual. Emma fell asleep in her car seat, clutching her rescued stuffed rabbit. Ben's hand found mine across the console. What now? He asked. I thought about the threatening note that started everything, still crumpled in my coat pocket. About Rose's codes and Tom's betrayal. About justice and revenge, and how sometimes they're the same thing. Now we live, I said. But differently. Differently how? Honestly. I squeezed his hand. No more secrets. No more looking over our shoulders. Just truth, even when it hurts. Emma stirred in the back seat, mumbling about ice cream and grandma. Some innocence can't be restored, but some can be protected. We pulled into our driveway as the sun set. Our home looked unchanged, but we weren't. The truth had reshaped us, marked us, freed us. Ben carried Emma inside while I lingered on the porch, watching shadows lengthen across our lawn. In the distance, sirens wailed, more arrests, more dominoes falling. The organization that had haunted Rose for decades was collapsing, its powerful members discovering that money couldn't buy silence forever. A new note lay on our welcome mat, but this time I didn't feel afraid. Some threats lose their power in the light. Some secrets need to be told. I picked up the note, already knowing what it would say. Thank you. Jitse. Julia had her justice. David had his truth. Rose had her redemption, even if forgiveness was still a distant hope. And we had tomorrow, free from the weight of unspoken words and buried sins. I closed the door behind me, leaving the shadows outside where they belonged.